Perhaps the greatest change in HTML4 over previous versions is the separation of structure and presentation. And a lot of what we're going to be looking at here is dependent upon this basic concept where you're going to have your structure laid out for your page inside of the HTML code, and then your presentation for that layout separated someplace else in a different file. Now, a lot of this is done using cascading style sheets, and we'll look at this in a little more depth in the next section. But for a quick look here, a little preview on this, let's see our basic layout. I have two lines of text here. One is right here. This is an example of styled text using font tags. And notice that we have an opening font tag. Here's a color, here's a size, here's a face. Then we have a closing font tag that's surrounded by a strong tag. Here's your closing strong tag, and here's your opening strong tag. So we have all of these tags and all this text happening in here to describe how this particular sentence looks. This is how HTML 3.2 and previous versions of HTML work. This is the text markup part of the hypertext markup language that we were talking about previously. And it's fairly easy to see and comprehend. You know, if this particular sentence has these particular attributes. Easy to see, easy to understand. But you'll also notice that there's an awful lot of code here. Let's say I had 17 sentences in here, each one marked up like this, and I had 17 pages in my website. If I wanted to go back and change a couple of things, let's say change the typeface and change the color, I would have to change that on those 17 instances in the web page. That'd take a little while. And then change that on the 17 additional web pages. That's a total of 289 places I'd have to change those little attributes such as the color and the font, the face. Of course, we can do search and replace and make that a little quicker, but you still have to go back to each one of those pages and change each one of those pages individually, even with the search and replace. Now, with separating of the structure, such as the table structure that we have right here, here's our tables, from the presentation, and presentation we're talking about things such as the bold, font color, size, face, all of that. By separating that into a separate file, we can then link to that file. And again, this is core to how HTML4 works. You'll notice up at the top here, I have a link. Here we go, link. And here's our reference to that link, sample.css. This is a cascading style sheet. You see right here, style sheet. Cascading style sheet that contains several different styles that I've set up. One of those styles happens to match this. It happens to be font color right here. It happens to be the size, this face, and that's all contained, if we come down here and take a look, in this particular style. Page, body, bold, red, small. And this is set up as a class. What we do is we first link to our style sheet right here. So all our presentation is stored in the style sheet. We can then call different classes from that stored style sheet or from that linked style sheet, such as this class. So this sentence is actually colored the same and styled the same as this sentence. You can see how much smaller the code is. It's just this little bit right there. This is the code for styling this sentence. Up here I have everything from here over to here plus this little bit. Quite a bit more. So just in a code savings, cleaning up the page, there's a tremendous savings here. On top of that tremendous savings, and here's where separating the structure from the presentation really becomes useful, I can go back at any point and change my cascading style sheet. I can change the settings, which look pretty much like this, inside my style sheet. I could say change this to a different color, different size, and different typeface right inside the style sheet. Then every single page on my site and every single instance on my site that links to that particular reference or class will automatically change. So I can make those 289 changes with just one change by changing the style sheet. And that's the basic concept here behind separating the structure and the presentation. So as you can see, there are several positives to this separation of structure and presentation. Another nice positive is that we'll be able to set up the structure to work on different media such as web phones, web-enabled phones, PDAs, things along that line, wireless devices, and then use different presentations. Or we can easily update our site at any point by changing our presentation layout. This also allows us to build template-driven websites much easier. One of the downsides of this, though, and one of the drawbacks, just a minor drawback in my mind, is if you are very familiar with HTML 3.2 and you're very comfortable using these font tags, and such as the strong and all these different font tags in here, these have all been deprecated in HTML4, and that means that they will most likely be dropped in the next version of HTML. And web browsers very likely will begin to drop their use of and their support for these font tags. So you may be forced actually to go through and update older sites that you may have finished previously using other versions of HTML. But again, there's every reason to do that update and very few reasons not to do that update unless it's a huge corporate site and the cost would just be prohibitive. But at some point here, we're all going to be forced to make the switch anyway as things move forward. And it's not a bad switch. This is one of the most positive things about HTML4. Let's now move on, take a little closer look at these style sheets.